Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Bannon has been arrested. Steve Bannon, We Build the Wall organizers arrested, charged with defrauding donors. Public statements that 100% of the money would be toward the wall were false, prosecutors say. This is happening in New York. And a New York federal judge sided against President Trump on his tax returns. It's interesting. I thought that investigations, within 2 years or a year and a half of an election, I thought these investigations were unethical, election interference. They didn't want the Durham probe to be not even a report. So they've completely ignored Kevin Kleinsmith's guilty plea, which was directly an admission that the entire Trump-Russia probe was a setup. But I thought Trump was impeached for trying to interfere in the election because he was trying to get others to investigate his direct political rival. Now you have New York prosecutors doing everything they can to go after everyone from Giuliani to now you have Steve Bannon. So let's assume that he engaged in possible misconduct or possible illegal activity. What happens when Ocasio-Cortez and top aide should be investigated for possible campaign finance violations? Hans A. von Spakovsky. This is an article, March 9th, 2019, in Fox. Hans A. von Spakovsky is a former FEC chairman. Hans A. von Spakovsky is a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the co-author of Who's Counting, How Fraudster... he served as a commissioner on the Federal Election Commission from 2006 to 2007, as also the former counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Justice Department. So when you have New York prosecutors going after everything involved with President Trump, from Michael Cohen to, they found out what he did with his taxis and all the illegal activity that he committed that had nothing to do with President Trump. Then you have Democrats just giddy and so happy, which is one of the reasons they'll lose, because they don't stand for any policies. They have zero policies that they're even talking about during the DNC convention that nobody's watching, which is an unmitigated disaster. But we'll get to the difference in levels of suspicion, and we'll get to the hypocrisy here. But Steve Bannon, We Build the Wall organizers arrested, charged with defrauding donors. Isn't it interesting how New York judges, New York prosecutors get like this erotic sensation, or they get very excited, and they get so giddy and happy, and oh my God, it's their life's mission to go after President Trump. When they investigated the Clinton Foundation with millions from Uranium One, millions from UBS and Boeing, weapons deals from countries, gosh, they couldn't find anything. If it's AOC and a whole bunch of PACs and money being changed between different organizations or transferred, and boyfriends getting payments or whatever the story was. It's like, we're not even going to touch it. So I just find it interesting, and I'm going to give you the two different worlds that Democrats and media ignore and what they obsess over. But here, we'll read this. Steve Bannon, We Build the Wall organizers arrested, charged with defrauding donors. Public statements that 100% of the money would be put towards the wall were false, prosecutors say. Steve Bannon, a former advisor to President Trump, was among 4 suspects arrested Thursday and indicted in connection with an online fundraising campaign that allegedly defrauded donors of hundreds of thousands of dollars, the Justice Department announced. Nothing to do with President Trump, but here, according to the indictment, Bannon and co-defendant Brian Colfage told the public that they were a, quote, volunteer organization and that 100% of the money raised would go towards their stated goal, which was to raise money for the federal government to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Quote, those representations were false, the indictment said. Prosecutors claimed that Colfage, Bannon, and Andrew Bottolato and Timothy Shea took money for themselves as the campaign raised upwards of $25 million. The indictment alleges that Bannon received more than $1 million through a nonprofit that he then used for personal expenses to pay Colfage. Okay, let's see how similar this is to what was alleged against AOC and the organizations that she was a part of / helped run, that helped get her into Congress. But here, prosecutors say Bannon and the others used the nonprofit and a shell company to hide the payments to Colfage by using, quote, by using fake invoices and sham vendor arrangements. Vendor arrangements, that's interesting. Gosh. Anyway, as well as other means of keeping the payment quiet, the indictment stated that in order to raise funds, Colfage and Bannon repeatedly and falsely told the public that Colfage would not take a penny in compensation. The campaign's website said that all of the money raised would go to the government for building the wall, and that if they did not meet their fundraising target, they would refund every single penny, according to the indictment. So if he's guilty of this, that's horrible and horrendous. I doubt, though, that New York prosecutors are really worried about the money that people who want to build a wall didn't get, or that they were duped, or that was taken from them in a policy objective that these New York prosecutors very likely oppose. So I don't think it was about protecting conservatives or Trump supporters or people who gave money to Bannon. If indeed Bannon is guilty of this, then yeah, he's committed a major crime. Major crime. I don't understand, or I do understand, but I think that when the laws are not applied equally, when there's two standards of justice, when it's, Clinton didn't mean to, and she'll be the nominee eventually. There's no way they're going with Biden, and there's no way they're going to allow Biden to debate President Trump. She'll be debating President Trump, and anyway, if it's Biden, they lose miserably, and all of this is just mere public relations. But when it's Clinton, gosh, we couldn't find anything. I mean, we found a lot, actually, top secret intelligence on servers outside of the United States government, but you know what? She just used the servers for convenience, and then you have the Medicare for All people who were too cowardly to even touch the topic. One person was like, "Oh yeah, H.A. Goodman, he's the one who he's the fill in the blank who promised that Clinton would get indicted." I was like, I didn't promise anything or guarantee anything. What happens is the left is so full of the biggest cowards and phonies that there are so many things that they can't touch, which would actually help that progressive side if they actually did go after those things. But there's so many stories and scandals and controversies that they won't even touch because it's too close to being a Republican. It's too close to, possibly helping the other side. So what they do is they focus only on what's appropriate or what the left-leaning paradigm will allow. Democrats understand this, and that's why the left, progressives, far left, get completely stomped on and bullied and silenced and denigrated and mocked by the same liberals and establishment Democrats that they constantly complain about, but who hold all the power and who decide what takes place in the Democratic Party. That's why you haven't had a Medicare for All bill or any major legislation, not a Green New Deal public relations ploy in a resolution. No major legislation, climate change legislation. Maybe, I think it was one Vox talked about. It was one in 10 years. The first major climate change bill in a decade. According to the UN, we only have 11 years. But so their rhetoric never correlates with action. But we have this, so why am I bringing this up? It's the Democratic Party will lose miserably. If they go with Biden, they'd lose miserably. If they went with Clinton, which they will go with Clinton eventually. She's a superior candidate. She could raise the money needed. She has the base of support. You know everything I've told you for 4 years now. And President Trump's going to win either way. That's part of my prediction for 4 years. So this will be the second election that I accurately predict. Because 2016, I predicted Clinton would lose. President Trump's going to win again. Why am I kind of giving you this background here? You have to look at things from a bird's eye view. They go after one side. They investigate one side. When another side investigates them for legitimate purposes, they then say, oh my God, you're trying to interfere in the election. It's never election interference when New York prosecutors go after people who are linked to Trump. It's never election interference. It's always a great thing. They're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. But here, within a week of Coalphage launching the campaign in December of 2018, they raised roughly $17 million, prosecutors said. Due to concerns over where the money was going, the crowdfunding platform told Coalphage to identify a nonprofit that the money would go to, or the funds would be returned. At that point, prosecutors said Bannon and Bortolato worked on creating the nonprofit We Build the Wall, Inc. The stated goal was then changed to using the money to privately construct the wall, and past donors had to agree to have their money used for that purpose. They were sure that all the money would go to the wall construction and not to Coalphage or the organizers' board, the indictment said. Okay, so as alleged, the defendant defrauded hundreds of thousands of donors, capitalizing on their interest in funding a border wall to raise millions of dollars under the false pretense that all the money would be spent on construction, acting U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss said in a statement. So when you're dealing with a lot of money, Bannon and others were each charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Wow. Each count carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. Wow. So if convicted, they face a lot of time, and it's a big deal. If they did what they did, it's a huge crime. Now let's just look at what AOC is and all the people around her are accused of, and see the difference in coverage. Let's assume AOC is completely innocent, and let's assume Bannon is very likely guilty. Okay? Let's just assume those things right now. I want to just read you this. This is Hans A. von Spakovsky, former FEC chairman. A former FEC chairman. Here, Ocasio-Cortez and top aide should be investigated for possible campaign finance violations. You're dealing with similar amounts of money here. Here, an investigation is needed to determine if Socialist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the media magnate on the far-left fringe of the Democratic Party, has broken federal campaign finance laws. If convicted of criminal conduct, she could get up to 5 years in prison for each violation. Okay? If you're a Democrat in New York, you have to go above and beyond what's rational or reasonable, or say not rational or reasonable. You have to go above and beyond to even get on the radar. It's happened before. Democrats in New York, of course, have been indicted and convicted. But in this day and age, just check this out. We don't know at what point. We don't know at this point if New York Congresswoman has engaged in improper conduct, but she and her chief of staff and former campaign manager are accused of serious charges in a complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission by the National Legal Policy Center. Okay, so let's read. The accusations against Ocasio-Cortez are ironic because she has criticized the use of untraceable money in political campaigns and portrayed herself as a champion of campaign finance reform. Her Twitter biography says she is 100% people-funded, no corporate PACs. No, but she has other PACs. I love when they're like, no corporate money. Well, there's still a lot of money, a great deal of money from a lot of people. Very idealistic progressives give money to not only her campaign and her PACs, but a whole bunch of $20 million. Well, they get $20 million in venture capital funding, the people associated with AOC, and then they get, then there's they had a racial discrimination lawsuit, and then they still asked donors or viewers for money. So you can go on forever. The same people on the left who are like, get money out of politics, are very much involved with money in politics. Very much. A lot of money. Similar to the money that might do Steve Bannon in. In addition, Ocasio-Cortez is a big supporter of H.R. 1, a bill with numerous campaign finance law requirements that would severely restrict and burden political activity and speech. Okay, so here. And when Ocasio-Cortez questioned President Trump's former attorney Michael Cohen about the president's tax returns and his business dealings when Cohen testified before a House committee last month, her questions were so thorough and detailed that Vanity Fair headline, AOC and Cohen team up to give Trump a financial colonoscopy he'll never forget. Oh, here we go. So, but apparently what's good for the gander isn't good for the goose in terms of public disclosure as far as AOC is concerned. Is the New York Congresswoman who claims to be an honest and upstanding crusader for good government and transparency really a hypocrite who improperly hid her own campaign spending in a complex maze of fundraising groups? Let's get money out of politics. Let's find out how AOC and all the wonderful people around her got money out of politics. These are really great people who, by the way, really enjoy, just like all Democrats, when Steve Bannon or anyone around Trump gets arrested or indicted. They never talk about Kevin Kleinsmith or anybody who will get indicted for setting up and framing Trump. So that's one of the... They won't even do what I'm doing now, like reading and acknowledging that, yeah, if Steve Bannon did what he did, it's horrible. They'll immediately go to, oh my God, it's just, if the tables were turned, they'd say, oh my God, it's a conservative state that's going after, the equivalent of Bannon, just because that's what AOC's initial reaction was. These conservatives are trying to go after me. Well, let's listen. As a former FEC commissioner who has studied the complaint against AOC and her campaign chairman, I have concluded there is unquestionably more than enough evidence to justify the FEC opening a civil investigation. And there's also enough evidence for the U.S. Justice Department to seriously consider opening a criminal investigation. The National Legal Policy Center complaint is complicated. It alleges that Ocasio-Cortez and her campaign chairman legally controlled a political action committee called Justice Democrats PAC when Ocasio-Cortez was a candidate in the Democratic primary for the House seat she now holds. This is very interesting. This is very interesting. Campaign manager, not campaign chairman. So, the National Policy Center complaint is complicated. It alleges that Ocasio-Cortez and her campaign manager legally controlled a political action committee called Justice Democrats PAC when Ocasio-Cortez was a candidate in the Democratic primary for the House seat she now holds. Gee, what YouTubers are associated with Justice Democrats? We all know. At the same time, Ocasio-Cortez headed up her own separate campaign committee managed by her campaign manager. The Justice Democrats PAC, controlled by Ocasio-Cortez and her campaign manager, was supporting the election of about a dozen Democratic candidates, including Ocasio-Cortez. The complaint also claims that her former campaign manager, ran two other shell organizations, Brand New Congress LLC, as well as another related political action committee called Brand New Congress PAC. Now, here's where it gets more confusing and strange if Ocasio-Cortez wasn't trying to hide anything. According to the FEC complaint, Ocasio-Cortez's campaign committee paid almost $20,000 to Brand New Congress LLC for strategic consulting during the 2018 election campaign. The Justice Democrats PAC that Ocasio-Cortez and her former campaign manager controlled also paid Brand New Congress LLC more than $600,000 for strategic consulting. That's funny. So let's just read this again. The Justice Democrats PAC that Ocasio-Cortez controlled also paid Brand New Congress LLC more than $600,000 for strategic consulting. And Brand New Congress PAC paid Brand New Congress LLC. Why do they have so many different Brand New Congress entities? And Brand New Congress PAC paid Brand New Congress LLC an additional $261,000. So what's the significance of all the shifting of money from one group to another? It doesn't make sense to argue this was done in the name of transparency and public disclosure. The complaint by the National Legal and Policy Center claims that the organization that Ocasio-Cortez controlled paid her campaign manager's shell organizations almost $900,000 for strategic consulting. Okay, what kind of strategic consulting did organizations that they created give to them? So, altogether, Ocasio-Cortez's campaign committee and her political action committee, Justice Democrats PAC, raised a combined $4.6 million, according to the Daily Caller. Way to get money out of politics. Brand New Congress LLC, which was the recipient of the $900,000 for, quote, strategic consulting, employed all of the staffers working for federal campaigns, according to the FEC complaint. Her former campaign manager himself said in an MSNBC interview that Brand New Congress LLC created the campaign infrastructure and fundraising operations for the candidates, including Ocasio-Cortez. If these allegations are true, there are numerous problems. First, the campaign committee of Ocasio-Cortez and her political action committee, Justice Democrats PAC, may have violated federal reporting requirements. Federal Law 52 U.S.C. 30104 and pertinent FEC regulations require any political committee, and both of these entities would qualify, to provide itemized descriptions of all their expenditures over $200. Simply listing, quote, strategic consulting for almost $900,000 in disbursements to an organization that admits it was doing all of the administrative work for the campaign, including fundraising, campaign advertising, organizing rallies and speaking events, and handling volunteers, certainly does not meet this requirement. In fact, it looks like the campaign was using the PACs and LLCs to avoid disclosing the actual spending and work being done for AOC's campaign. Moreover, if it is true that AOC or her campaign manager control Justice Democrats PAC and Brand New Congress PAC, they would be considered affiliated organizations to her campaign organization. Since the PACs were handing out money to the LLC to work on her campaign, the PACs and campaign committee would be treated as the same organization by the FEC under federal law. That means that the limit on a campaign contribution to a federal candidate, $2,700 in the 2018 election cycle, would apply to all three organizations. In other words, if someone gave AOC $2,700 contribution and then gave another contribution to either of the other two PACs that AOC and her former campaign manager were running, her campaign violated federal law by receiving and keeping a contribution above the legal limit. Each excessive contribution received is a separate violation of the law. There's no way on God's green earth that New York prosecutors would go after, or the FEC. Well, the FEC, but I'm reading this not to tell you that AOC is going to, or anyone around her is going to be convicted. I'm reading this to give you the view, I'm reading this to explain to you the difference in the way Democrats look at campaign finance violations and fundraising violations. If it's they're touching themselves in ecstasy now with Steve Bannon. And if Steve Bannon did what he's accused of doing, that's horrible and horrendous, and he committed major crimes. The problem, though, is that they don't utilize the value system when it's them, when it's people on their side that are accused of doing what AOC had done, or like AOC has been accused. Basically, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. But here, let's continue. Finally, a Brand New Congress LLC was set up to create the, quote, campaign infrastructure and fundraising operations for the candidates. As our former campaign manager said, then his LLC may have been making undisclosed in-kind contributions to all these campaigns, unless the campaigns were actually paying the fair market value of the services. These are serious allegations. As election attorney and former FEC lawyer Michael Bays told me, quote, this is certainly an unusual arrangement, and there are lots of opportunities for violations, from funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign spending through LLCs to running separate PACs to support her own campaign. That sounds like something the FEC should look into. Charles Spies, a lawyer and campaign finance law expert, told the Daily Caller that if, quote, if a campaign and PAC are under common control and the PAC was funding campaign staff and activities as an alter ego of the campaign committee, that would be, quote, blatant abuse of the rules governing PACs. Former FEC Chairman Brad Smith said the facts that have been revealed should, quote, trigger a serious investigation. Civil violations of federal campaign law are enforced by FEC with civil penalties. It takes 4 votes of the 6-member commission to authorize opening an investigation. The FEC now is, I don't even think it's adequately funded now, so, but anyway, but the FEC currently only has 4 commissioners, 2 Republicans, 1 independent, 1 Democrat, so we'll take the votes of all 4 commissioners to authorize an investigation, meaning that any one commissioner could prevent the FEC from undertaking a probe. That shouldn't happen given all the evidence of possible violations of law. It has already been made public. Criminal violations of federal campaign finance law, on the other hand, are enforced by the Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division of the U.S. Justice Department. Civil violations often involve inadvertent or unintentional violations of the law. Criminal violations occur when someone intentionally and willfully violates federal campaign finance law. Convictions of these charges carries a prison sentence of up to 5 years for each violation. So you're talking about millions of dollars. Oh, you're also talking about millions of dollars here, just like you were with Bannon. And not only that, what happened to the $200 million raised by Bernie Sanders? I got a small favor to ask of you. You got more money? What happened there? Oh, that's right. Debbie Wasserman Schultz just said, take a hike and stuff it. We're cheating Bernie. And if you find out, the Russians told you. There seems to be enough evidence here to justify opening a criminal investigation, as the Washington Examiner reported. Her former campaign manager appeared to be operating a slush fund, campaign finance attorneys called this arrangement. Campaign finance attorneys call this arrangement really weird. The complaint to the FEC says AOC and her staff, chief of staff, orchestrated an extensive off-the-books operation to make hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenditures in support of multiple candidates for federal office. We don't know what further investigation will find, but it is clear an investigation is needed to determine if AOC broke the law. Then, of course, you have AOC. Let's see. So, New York Post, Ocasio-Cortez's campaign may have illegally paid her boyfriend. Okay. And then you have, they were hit with a fine. Oh, that's right. AOC campaign hit with fine for failing to protect workers. Okay. Ocasio-Cortez's campaign slapped with a fine for not providing proper workers' comp. Well, of course. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Give me your thoughts below. They are just so happy, and oh my God, they're like, oh yes, we got Bannon. It's not going to help them in the election. I can go on forever regarding AOC. I mean, regarding Clinton becoming nominee. She's the only chance they have. I said in the Huffington Post, The Hill Salon in 2015 and 2016. In 2015, NPR quoted me, and the link is below to the quote. I said Clinton would lose swing states. 538 said Trump wouldn't even be GOP nominee. Guess who was right? Give me your thoughts below. I'm telling you now that Clinton is the best candidate they have. And I don't trust the Democratic Party as far as I could throw Jerry Nadler. They cheated Bernie Sanders. They're the biggest bunch of cheaters on the planet. And then they blamed Russia for 4 years for informing the country that Bernie Sanders was cheated. Give me your thoughts below. I don't trust them I don't trust them going with Biden, because Biden would get ripped apart and eaten alive in debates. They're going to lose this election miserably. They would never allow AOC, because she got the green light. It was sanctioned by the DNC for her to endorse Bernie Sanders. That wasn't an act of rebellion. I don't trust them. They have something up their sleeves. And again, Clinton is the best candidate they have. And she wants a rematch. So let's have that rematch and stop the charade. I don't think there's any way, there's no way they go with Biden. Clinton's going to be there on that debate stage. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very, very much. I mean, she's actually the only chance they have this year. Bernie Sanders would have won in 2016. Thank God he didn't. President Trump's a great president, reversing U.S. foreign policy, signing a deal in Afghanistan to get us out of America's longest-running military conflict. Bernie wouldn't have done that. He would have said, oh, how high? You want me to jump? How high? Anyway, we can go on forever. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. My Patreon is below, to my 30-minute crowd if you want to support my work. And be here every evening, around 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific for my live stream. Thank you so very, very much.